Are you all able to see the screen?
Yes.
Hello, are you all able to see the screen?
Yes, madam.
Okay, let us begin. So welcome back to our, I think this is our third week of research methods. And I hope you had a good week. I had also asked you to redo your first assignment. So I'm assuming you've all uploaded. I have downloaded already the folder, and we'll start marking that first assignment, hopefully today, if not tomorrow. That is 1, 2. We had begun on an introduction of research last week. We started a bit late because it was Ash Wednesday, if you may recall. But I uploaded the recording of that lecture on Moodle. I hope you have accessed it. It was uploaded to YouTube, so you can download it and go back and listen to it. So I won't repeat what was said then. If I recall, this was the slide we stopped at. So I will ask you to go back and listen to that recording. And I remember asking each one of you to go and find out what a research method, the basic things that we discussed. I asked if you can go and find out what is a research problem, what are research objectives, what are research methods. Do you remember those questions I asked you?
Yes, madam.
So what did you find out from that small exercise?
About a research method, I found out that a research method is a strategy process.
You found out a research method is, sorry?
Sorry?
You said you found out?
That a research method is a strategy or process utilized in the collection of data and evidence for analysis in order to uncover new information.
So it's a strategy.
No, that's a method.
You said that a research method is a strategy or?
Yes. A process.
A process.
Or technique.
Or technique.
Utilized in the collection of data or evidence.
Okay.
For analysis in order to uncover new information.
Okay. So thank you for that. Those words used are really important. So sometimes you find a research method is actually called a research strategy. Usually those terms are interchangeable. It's also a procedure, it's a technique. If you look at anything, if you look at those words technique, normally it comes hand in hand with the word technology. If you find out what the definition of technology is, technique comes in, science comes in, method comes in. So it's a scientific method. In simple terms, it's a scientific method that you use to discover new knowledge. Those are key terms to remember, okay? Key terms to remember. You will have research method. You are all IT students. You have system development methods. Not so?
Yes.
Yeah, those methods are used to develop systems. Okay? Those methods are used to develop systems. So definitely we expect to see them in your research projects, but a research method is different. The research method is used to acquire new research knowledge. Okay? Acquire new research knowledge. So in your writings, we expect to see two different methods, the method for developing the system and the method for collecting data, for not collecting data, sorry, for discovering new knowledge. Okay, so key terms, things that I would like to make clear to all of you. You have the research method, you have the system development method, then you have the methods which collect data, things like interviews, questionnaires. Those collect data. They don't bring forward new knowledge. What brings forward the new knowledge is the research method. I hope I am making sense. These are things I wish you could take note of. Okay, please take note of them. Please, I hope you're listening. This lecture is recorded. It will be uploaded. Please make sure you go back, listen to it. Keep this in mind. Research is not, I'm really, really hoping we can be on one page with this. Then Kusima says a research problem is a specific issue or question that a researcher aims to investigate through their study. Thank you, Kusima. A research problem is a specific issue or question that a researcher, keyword researcher, aims to investigate through study, aims to investigate, meaning you are, number one, you need to be a researcher. So who is a researcher? There is a difference between Sheba the person and Sheba the researcher. Sheba the person may have a problem with her sister. Okay? Maybe my sister believes this thing, I believe another. Sheba may have a problem with her student. Sheba may have a problem with her co-worker. They don't get along, we don't have the same values, blah, blah, blah. Sheba may have a problem with her teaching methods. Those are all Sheba's problems, but they are not research, they are not problems as a researcher. A problem for me as a researcher has to be a problem that has been identified in a research community. Okay? A research community. So how do we know what that research community, who that research, who is that, how do we know what the problems in a research community? How do we know? Can anyone take a wild guess? How do we know about a research problem in a research community? Can anyone try and guess? Kusima says literature review. Very good. Yes, yes, please. Who else? Anyone else? And literature.
Accessing the community content.
Pardon?
Accessing the community.
Yes, and how do we access that community? It's from published articles, scholarly published articles. So that's the first thing I introduced you to when we started this course unit, to go out and start looking for published scholarly published articles. So Kusima says academic conferences and journals. Yes. So I think we have at least some good idea, at least for a research problem and research methods. Okay? So why do we conduct research? Yeah? Why do we conduct research? First thing here, we say academic purposes. Okay? I had earlier told you that you are in the field of IT, and some of the greats in IT are non-graduates. Bill Gates is one of them. Steve Jobs is another. This guy, Mark Zuckerberg of Facebook, is also another non-graduate. So why are you here? Why are you in this course unit? Why are you in this program? Because there is a difference between you and them. You are an academic. Yes, you can reach their heights. I'm not saying that you can't reach their heights. You can. You're capable. You have all the capacity to get to those heights and even greater. But why is it that you are different from a non-graduate? You're here to become an academic, and that's what research does. Makes you an academic, makes you a thinker. Okay? That is one. Two, acquire new knowledge. So we talked about research problems and everyday problems. Every problem we have in this world helps us to grow in knowledge. Every single problem that we have in this world. If let us say I have a problem with my sister, okay? One of the things I could learn from that is how to maybe communicate better or to understand my sister better. If I have a problem with my colleague, probably it's also to stop and pull myself back and learn to be more mature about handling problems or allowing others to express there is some new knowledge I'm picking, okay? But not in terms of research. In research, yes, still it's new knowledge, but new knowledge in terms of a certain research community. If you saw all the things we're saying, we're going to investigate, meaning there is something that is yet unknown that we need to know more, okay? Something that is yet unknown that we need to know more. And these publications normally tell us what is yet unknown, what is yet unconfirmed, that we need to confirm. Okay? We say ICT, maybe if there's literature pointing that ICT supports teaching and learning, especially now post-COVID-19, it is greatly supported teaching and learning. Then one can say, let me go and investigate. Is it true? It's being propositioned, but there's been no research to actually ascertain if this is true. Let me design an application, implement it, and see if it does actually improve teaching and learning. Okay? So that's the new knowledge. So it comes second to the second one, the third, to find answers to questions. To solve a problem in the practical world. Okay? To solve a problem in the practical world. Especially for us in IT, our research is normally problem-centered. Okay? We gave an example last week of Brian's case of AI and marketing. And we say, maybe there's been a challenge now post-COVID-19 of acquiring new markets. We have our economies most economies were hit after COVID-19. It's not only Uganda, every single economy is going through a crisis. Now the issue may be, how do we, now AI is being prepositioned. Then Brian says, let me implement AI in a particular context and see if it does solve the problem of improving markets, okay? Improving customer segmentation, things like that. So that's a problem. So that's what research does. It enhances critical communication. This is extremely key, okay? You remember the first assignment I've given you, I've asked you to report back what this other article is saying in your own words, meaning you need to understand the other person's point of view and then communicate it. And this is key as you write your concept papers, you write your proposal, and finally your dissertation. That communication is extremely important because it can either make or break you. The minute the reader doesn't understand what you're saying, that's an automatic fail. So that's what research does. Helps you to become an independent thinker, to be creative, to be problem solving. So research also helps us answer the what if questions. What happens if I apply this application into this context? What happens? Okay. Ultimately, there's usually what we call in research significance of the problem. Significance of the research, not the problem, but of the research. At the heart of everything is to improve, to bring about an improvement, to bring about a solution. Okay? It may be a small thing that you're adding, but that's important. Now, one of the things I want to discourage you from is to imagine that research is there to solve every single thing. No, that is not the case. Research is not there to solve all the world's problems. Research is there to solve research problems, which may be small, but it becomes a body once more and more people keep researching. So we wouldn't want to see in your research something like, in this organization, we've identified this problem. If I put this application, it will solve everything. No, that is not the kind of research. Test hypothesis. We're going to meet this term hypothesis. You can start researching on it immediately, find out what hypothesis is, but we're going to discover it. We're going to discuss it more and more. Hypothesis is basically a statement which needs to be proved or disproved. Okay? So here you have an example, girls hate mathematics, and the researcher goes out to prove or disprove it. Systems bring about efficiency, and the researcher again is there to prove or disprove it. Okay? To test or disprove a theory. Yeah? So those are all that we are going to discuss them in detail, but start reading about on these technical terms now. So characteristics of a good research. Number one, it's a process and it is systematic. Research has predefined rules and regulations. And that's one of the purposes of doing this research, to understand what those rules and regulations are. You should have identified a research problem. That is one. You should have clearly articulate what your objective is. That is two. You should have identified an appropriate research method. That is three. Okay? Then after that, there is the issue of ethics and integrity. Once you've identified your research problem, identified your objectives, identified your research method, you go into the field. Instead of filling out your questionnaire, instead of giving it to participants, respondents, you decide to fill it out yourself. Sit under a tree and fill out the questionnaire yourself, because you wouldn't be bothered. Instead of interviewing people, you formulate your own. Those are some of the rules against research. Okay, those are the ethical elements. Okay. Research builds on. It builds on. That is why we talked about a research community. A research community begins by identifying where the research problem is. Then you say, I'm going to tackle this from this angle. Then another researcher says, me, I'll tackle it from this other angle. And then we see if the information harmonizes. For example, if a research community propositions that ICT or information systems bring about efficiency, and then somebody says, okay, I'm going to find out if this is true by carrying out a laboratory experiment to see if processes actually improve. Experimental laboratory, they call it experimental research. And then another person says, no, me, I'm going to implement in a live situation and go and find out. Those are two different angles. So each of them will be bringing about more knowledge on whether information systems actually do bring about improvement in efficiency. Okay? Research addresses directly or indirectly some real-world problems. So, for example, we've just talked about efficiency. Yeah, that is something that every organization wishes to achieve, efficiency. Then good research has ethical or moral issues takes them into consideration. I gave you one of them. If you're collecting data, let it be collected. If you're collecting data, make sure you attain consent from your respondents. You also have to protect the identity of your respondents. You don't say, I interviewed Shaban, she said, Uganda Matters University is very hopeless. And then you put it in your dissertation. Shaban Nyakaisiti said, Uganda Matters is very hopeless. You need to protect the identity of your respondents throughout your reporting. A good research states the variables or constructs to be examined, what it is you're going to research on. Specifically, you're clear. I'm going to research on efficiency, and efficiency includes time, cost. You identify the things that actually talk about efficiency. The variables and these are the variables I'm going to talk about if I'm going to talk about efficiency. Okay? Research is not biased. This is extremely important. Here I'm going to give you an example of something that I witnessed many years back when I was still a PhD student. So in this, there was a workshop for PhD students where they were presenting their work to an audience. So I remember in particular, there were two particular cases that stood out. There was a lady who was researching on the land issues, the historical land issues between Buganda and Bunyoro. So as she was presenting her work, I don't know if you know about this situation. I also don't know it well, but I believe there was some land taken from Bunyoro and given to Uganda when Bunyoro was defeated by the colonial rulers. So I think that has some, of course, some underlying historical and cultural tensions. Now, this lady, when she was doing her research, when she was presenting, you could see she was visibly emotional about it. I don't know whether she was a Muganda or Minyoro, but you could see there was a visible, you could tell from the tone, the way she spoke, and her voice, how it kept going up, and the tension in her. So at a certain point, after she finished, one person in the audience said that I would advise that you change this topic because visibly you have an emotional attachment. So that meant she could not report back objectively. And it is important that you report back what you're saying objectively. Okay? I'll give you another example of my own case when I was doing research. I was researching, it was basically ICT. I was researching on an ICT implementation in a rural community, a healthcare context. So there was a community there near Nkozi called Nindia Parish, where the government was going to implement a system, a mobile reporting system. But before they implemented, we had a number of workshops with the community. And they had their grievances. My objective was to find out what things are within the rural context, within a rural setting that can affect this mobile application. So one of the things people kept talking about, of course, their poverty. And one of the people, community members, they call them VHTs. They are ordinary people who are elected and they provide healthcare support to the community. So they were coming to the authorities telling them we don't have any support. You promised us bicycles. These bicycles broke down, blah, blah, blah. So there was a lady I was with, and she said, look at this man. He's complaining, yet he has a whole motorcycle. So also immediately it raised up in me to say, these people are just begging because they've seen donors. Then something immediately reminded me about being objective. For me, it was my opinion But for this person who is in the community, his poverty matters. If you're asking him to do something, then if he feels he needs to be facilitated with a bicycle, I need to put aside my biases. So that was a moment in which my conscience reminded me the issue about being objective. My feelings I put aside. Okay? Then finally, to have multiple possible answers. One of the things we don't do in research is to say, this is the final answer. No, we say probably this means this. We are leaving room in case our research did not see something. Okay? Do we have any questions so far? Do we have any questions so far?
So far, everything is clear.
Everything is okay. Okay, let's move on then. What research is not? Some key things we must take note of. You see? Sima, you have a question? Sima, do you have a question? Sima is asking me what are my qualifications. Yes, my qualifications, I thought I'd put them up on the study guide. So one, I have a bachelor's degree in ethics and development studies. I was one of the pioneer students of Uganda Matters University. I joined in 1995. We were the third lot, so I got a degree in ethics and development studies. Then I have a master's degree in computing. And then with the master's degree, I began to teach IT in Uganda Matters University. Specifically, I was teaching programming. I taught Java, I taught PHP, I taught VB and C++. Then I got a PhD in the field of ICT. Specifically, my research was on developing a model for sustainability of an mHealth application. So mHealth applications, those are mobile applications used for healthcare, to support healthcare. So those are my qualifications, Sima. I hope I've answered your question. So what research is not? So we've looked at good research, and then we want to see what bad research is. Now, you've all heard of the term plagiarism, not so? Have you heard of the term plagiarism? If you haven't, kindly go and Google it. Last week, I took time to explain to you about citation and referencing, that you read other people's literature. As you read it, don't report back word for word. If you do report back somebody's words word for word, put it in quotes and then reference, cite it, where you got it from. Even if you don't report back word for word, still reference. Say, this is where I got it from. So plagiarism is a serious matter in research. Really, really serious matter. Nowadays, I don't know for bachelors, but for masters, there is a software called Turnitin, which is used by the university. They get your work, put it in Turnitin, and find out if there is anything that you have copied. That is what plagiarism is. But you go and you have copied and pasted without referencing to the other person who wrote it. So plagiarism is one of the most serious things that there is. Second is falsifying data. And I already pointed out what falsifying data is. You go into the field, you're supposed to collect data with your questionnaire, you sit down under a tree, you fill in the data yourself. That is data falsification. Misinterpreting information and misleading participants. What they say, you decide to turn it to what you want to mean. Be as objective as possible. Misleading participants, telling them I'm doing this research, I'm going to give you money, or it's going to bring money if you do this research. That is misleading. Be very clear and honest to the people you are collecting data from. Providing inadequate references in your work. So doing heavy literature review is extremely important. These are key points for research, and I hope we keep them in mind. These are some of the problems you will encounter as you do your research. Lack of sufficient or appropriate literature. Especially for us here in Africa, it's a challenge accessing most of this literature that we want. It's really a challenge. Okay? I did my PhD in the Netherlands. So in a university in the Netherlands, whatever article I needed, I could access it very, very easily. But when I came back to Uganda, every time I would have come back to Uganda, trying to get some of these, because most of these journals are paid for. So we find our universities can't afford. But one of the things I would say, use Google Scholar as much as possible. That is one. Two, go to the librarians. The librarians know how to access certain articles. They know how to go back door. But try as much as possible to get as much literature as you can. So that is one, lack of sufficient data. Then inadequate data. In research, we need to have collected enough data in order to be able to come to a conclusion. We should have been able to collect enough data. Okay? Whether your research is going to, we shall talk about qualitative and quantitative. Whether it's qualitative or quantitative, our research, our data, we need to have adequate data. Three, adequate funding. You're going to go to the field. So for that, you need money. You're going to collect data. You're going to print. All of that needs money. So I'm not telling you, I'm not opening for you a blank check that go to your parents and now ask for a lot of money. No, I'm not asking you to do that. Okay? Be fair to your parents, but also be fair to yourself. Lack of trust from the data providers. If you pick a case study or a study area where people will not give you sufficient data, okay? Research then demands time, a lot of time and effort. If I can advise you, start now. Don't start in your third year. If you can start now, start now. If you can, please do so. We could have this discussion, but let me skip it for now. Do we have any questions? Do you have any questions so far? It's raining this side. I hope you can hear me. Can you hear me?
Yes, madam, we can hear you.
Hello? Can you hear me?
Yes, madam, we can hear you.
Okay. Do you have any questions so far? If no, let's move on to our next set of slides. Okay, I hope you can see this new set of slides.
Yes, madam.
Okay. And we want to look at types of research. Okay. Types of research. Now, there are very many variations of research. And we're going to go through each, as you see on this list, we are going through each one at a time. Let's start with basic versus applied research. Now, basic research, most of us will not do it in our lifetime. Normally, it is driven by a scientist being simply curious or interested. Yeah? Let me give you an example. I know most of you have heard of Darwin's theory of evolution. Not so. Hello, have all of you heard of Darwin's theory of evolution?
Yes, madam.
Hello? Sorry, it's raining.